So hello everyone. In this video I'm going to show you how to use Chromas Mines. Chromas Mines is an editor for palettes and color light maps for the classic FPS Dark Forces by LucasArts. If this doesn't make any sense to you, go and visit df-21.net. It's the home site of the Dark Forces community. So this is how the Chromas Mines app looks when freshly started. I just started it anew. And first, let's take before we go into individual features. Let's just take a quick look. What do we have here in the main user interface? So you already guessed it. This upper half is the current view of the current palette from 0 to 225. So all 226 colors one uses in Dark Forces, and yeah, they're always nicely shown in sequence. You can select any color by simply clicking on it. We'll come to why selection is important a bit later. Underneath there are some buttons which you can use to switch the selection easily, nicely move it left and right. And you see, you can here you can see the RGB values for the currently selected color as well as its index. You can also edit it by clicking on the currently selected color. You can simply adjust the RGB values and confirm, or you can just enter the RGB values you want you want to apply to this color. Let me just, for example, see, got it changed. I'll undo it for now. In the bottom half, we have the currently loaded color map. And the concept of color map is pretty simple, but let's go quickly through it. So the idea of a color map is it's a kind of a matrix which tells which color should be shown at which light level in the game. So this palette is a good representation of what colors players will see when the textures are under full light in Dark Forces. But if, for example, light falls to one half its maximum brightness, then the other colors from the palette should be used for instead of these colors. And this is what this map specifies. So the bottommost row is actually the palette as it looks, are all these colors as they are displayed at maximum brightness in the game. But as we go upward, we see which colors will be used instead at reduced color levels. Of course, here at level 0, so total darkness, it's all just black. But as black gets as the lightness increases in the game, different colors are used until they finally reach their their brightest version. They all of the colors here are referred to the colors in the actual palette. So the game always uses, altogether, regardless of the color levels, always uses the same 256 colors. But you have the option here. This color map says which color should be used for which of the palette colors at a given light level, given light intensity. And taking this into account, you see this kind of makes sense. So you see all these colors actually are in the in the bottom row, actually are getting darker in their respective columns as the light reduces. The exception are those at the total left, which are supposed to shine in the dark, and that kind of makes sense because if you've got this blue color, for example, which is supposed to shine in the dark, then at any light level it will always show the same blue color. That's something you can inspect easily here at the bottom of the window, where you can easily see for each of the light levels here below. So it ranges from 0, which is total darkness, to 31, which is the maximum brightness. It shows you which color will be used at these 32 levels. And for a glow in the dark, for a shining color, it's always the same one. But if we just take any other color, let's take white, or maybe better, let's take this. You see at maximum brightness, it shows itself the 80. But as the light decreases, the color to use colors that are used go here through the palette, so they become darker and darker. So if you have color 80 at full brightness, show 80 indeed, but if you have to show color 80 at brightness 18, use color 88. If you have to show it at brightness 10, use 93. If you have to show it at brightness 2, use color 77. So this one. That's how it works here, and this app is here to help you create your own palettes and color maps. Well, staying here on the screen, before we go into features, some more hints. So as soon as you select a color, let me just select, for example, some gray color. It's selected here, but also you can see the column where it has of which corresponds to it, and you can see these other small selections actually show where this particular color is being used. So this color, currently selected color 48, is of course its corresponding column in the color map, but also you see 48 is used elsewhere for other colors at lower color settings. So this is sometimes useful to see how widely used your color actually is. If you use 0, which is black, you see it's actually used a lot here. Some colors are not really used that much. You can click around on your own and see where is in the overall color map how widely is the selected color used. Some are used very often, some not at all. Okay, back to these features at the bottom. By clicking on any of these in the bottommost row, which shows correspondence of the currently selected color with the lightness levels, by clicking on any of those, we can switch quickly to that. So if I want to let me select something. If I click now here on, it shows that at level 26 it's the color 49. If I click on it, I just select 49. Then if I click in again, I select, then it switches to 54. So we have easy shortcuts. And if we want to change an assignment, we click at the bottom. So if, for example, here, if I want to say that color index 33 at lightness level 22 should not lead to 42 but to 57, I click here and I assign 57. And you see now it's 57. You can see it also reflected here in the color map that this individual setting has been changed. Normally, you'll very rarely want to do it really manually because you would, you could spend probably a lifetime just adjusting these manually. So this app is here to try and automate some of these processes. Okay, that much for the introduction. Let's go to the individual features. This one probably has the least surprises. By clicking on new, you create a blank palette, but very rarely will you actually need to do it because, usually you'll want to start with something more useful. Open is a simple thing. Open the PAL and color map files, which are the standard Dark Forces PAL and color map files you can find packed in the gobs of the original game. You can just browse them and open. I have Narshada palette and color map here. Select both files, click on open, and here you go. This is the Narshada palette. This saving is pretty much the same thing, the same idea, but with one extra extra option. You can here you can select how in the saved color map, because how bright the flashlight used in the game will be. So the thing is that in some levels you can make it depending on the color map. Color map contains information about how strong the flashlight is. You can completely disable it, or you can make it brighter and lighter than mostly in the original game. If you leave it at 50, it will look like in the most levels. And by the way, you can also exclude some of them. And when you're saving, you may choose not to actually save both files or overwrite, but just use one. But pretty straightforward what saving is, and what quitting is, and save as is even more straightforward. Okay. Let's go on to the edit menu. Undo is pretty clear what undoing is, and you can undo 20 levels backwards just by pressing U. All of these shortcuts are written here in brackets, so you can quickly know what you need to press. Toggle swatch borders is one feature here you may want to have. See, this introduces this black borders around all of the colors and all of the reference colors in the color map. Maybe it makes it a little bit easier for some to see the actual color. Usually, after a while, I realize I don't need it that much, but maybe someone will. And here you have the option to reverse the color orientation, so actually have the brightest light level at the top instead of at the bottom. Again, I got used to it being at the bottom, but maybe you'll decide otherwise for yourself. By using this feature, you can make the window larger or smaller, but you can also do it by pressing in increments by pressing the square brackets key. So if you press left, the window will become a bit smaller, and it will become larger as you press the right one. You can always, of course, set it manually to whatever you like. And finally, there is here in the edit menu, you can choose the color theme of the entire app. You've got a couple of presets, and you can just select one and change the look, change the colors of the entire application. Go ahead and play around and find the one which you like the most. This one is the default. Now you may wonder why would the service app like this one, like a crude utility, need something like color themes? But it actually does make some sense. Some pros in the field have pointed out to me that occasionally we perceive colors differently depending on the color we see on around it. So here this dark gray is fine, but sometimes you may want to see the palette surrounded by some other color, and in some different clothing, so to speak, of the app. So you may actually somehow, you may perceive these colors differently. So if you want to really experiment and see how these palettes and color maps feel in different colors, that's the feature you'll probably want to use. Okay, now we're getting into proper editing stuff. The next menu item is the next menu section is palette, and here we have, as you would expect, features to edit the current palette, the one we see here at the top half of the screen. And the first one is tinting, which is fairly straightforward. You choose an RGB value of a target color used for tinting. For example, now I'll take the pure medium bright blue. Here at the bottom, as I'm changing, you see what actually the expected result is going to be. And you can choose whether you want to mix it, like really classic tinting in the classical sense, whether the selected color should just be added to the current palette, or should it be subtracted. So if you subtract blue, everything the rest will start looking a little bit more like yellow. You see, if I do this, then blue actually is subtracted even more until we get just red and green palette. So you can play a little bit and probably find something you need. The thing is, here as well as in all other, in most other windows, you will see this tinted color range or a color map range. I won't explain it individually every time, but here you can select which colors, or in later cases, in which ranges will the change apply. So always by default, it applies to the entire palette, so from 0 to 255 inclusive, but you can enter any range you want to tint. If you want to tint from 58 to 129, then you just type in those numbers here and it will apply only to those. You have here shortcuts for those you will use most common, the entire palette, 0 to 255, and 32 to 55, which omits the first 32 colors, which are glow in the dark and special colors. So at 32 is what the regular color, where the regular colors begin. Just for an example, let's tint one palette blue. So I'll choose a blue color and mix it by for example, 1/3. Click on tint, and here you go. The color, the palette got tinted blue. Of course, the color map follows because these are the same colors. The mapping remains the same. The next feature is our general adjustments. If you've already worked with any kind of photo editing software or anything similar, you are very familiar with this. So you can here adjust the brightness, contrast. Again, you can see the preview, and you have the choice which range to apply to. Brightness, contrast, gamma, and saturation can be adjusted. You can do whatever you like. Usually, for example, let's do something like this. Applied, and here you go. Applied here, and again, like with all other palette options, this color map reflects it. Onward to auto gradient. Now, sometimes if you want, you see here in the palette we have various ranges, so we don't just have chaotic sets of colors, but for example we have you see here this span from white to black, then this from yellow to brown, then from bright red to dark red. Typically we are dealing with ranges, so you may want to just create the first and the last color of a range and let the app calculate the colors in between for you. So let's say we've created 112, this green, and 152, which is this blue, and we want to create a nice gradient in between them. So from 112 to 152, we go here, 112, 152, and you see it auto calculated all the colors in between. So you can create these ranges quite easily and quickly. The next thing is the progressive saturation, and the thing is as follows. So sometimes the automatic calculations, to which we'll come later, become the dark levels become quite unnatural. They may be they don't really seem very intuitive, or yeah, not really how you would expect them in the real world. So what you can do is let the to dark, it's not really darken, but desaturate the darker shades a bit to make it a bit more believable. It's difficult to describe directly what I mean, but let me just show you an example. You see, when I apply it, the darker shades are turning more towards gray, and that's actually how in very dark environments eyes work. So it's very difficult to see a very saturated color at very dark levels. So this is kind of a pseudo realism feature, which you may want to you may like or you may not like, but you see, you can vary the amount of desaturation being applied on the dark shades. On we go. The palette can be imported from an image. So if you got a paletted image, you can just click here and import it. That's pretty straightforward. Maybe useful if you got some BM or actually Bitmap lying around. You can import it directly into the app. Then merge with is an option to. Here we have an option to merge two palettes. I can select. I still have that Narshada palette here, and we can choose whether it will just replace some of the colors or actually mix them. So I'll now mix Narshada palette from this file with the currently loaded palette, and you'll see that some of the colors will change. You see now we've got something in between, so you can use that to combine some of your palettes. Then sorting, pretty straightforward. You can sort colors. Typically, we will not really want to sort colors for like forever. Because it's not really that useful, but it may be nice to see what colors have you actually got, what are you working with, and yeah, you can see you can sort according to a couple of criteria and choose whether to actually update the color map or not. So that's regarding sorting. The next one is copy selected color. You can just simply, if you, for example, I select color 50 and I want to assign the very same RGB values to somewhere else. Oops, not that, but copy selected color. I can copy it to a couple of other colors. I'll simply click this and you see this blue appeared in the given indexes. Pretty straightforward. The next one is maybe useful when working a lot with something. It checks all the the consistency of and actually the usage of palette and color map, whether everything makes sense. It warns you if some of the colors in the master palette are identical. In this case, you see a couple of them are. So 0 is equal to 79. So 79 and 0 are actually the same full black colors. Also, 239 is black and 254 is full black, and so on. So here you can see what duplicates you have, because you can usually get rid of them if you want. Uh, it of course it's down to you what you it's depends on what you're actually trying to achieve. But yeah, it can be useful to know. Uh, and also, it tells you which colors are never used in the color map. Although keep in mind that even if the color map is if the color map is at full brightness, it will always show the actual color, regardless of what actually is the bottommost, so the brightest row in the color map. So it can help you to actually optimize a bit if you need one or two free extra colors. That probably lets you know easily what can you get rid of, which colors can you replace, because if you've got 5 blacks, one should typically be enough. You can just select you can just create your other colors there. And finally, in this section, we've got the coverage scatter. Here it shows in hue versus brightness and hue versus saturation, two plots. It shows you what colors are covered in the currently loaded palette. It's not just it's not just for show, but actually it may show you what it may tell what ranges of colors are not covered well. So, for example, if you're trying to create some palette which covers a specific range of a specific range of colors, you may want to you can check whether it works here, or if you want to have a palette which covers more or less all colors uniformly, you can check here whether you're not having any large empty patches, like for example you do here. You see this default palette that I've just loaded uh, almost doesn't have any colors in between the pure blue and the red. So if you want to have anything like purple or pink, you have only got this special color here, which is anyway not used. But this may be an indicator that you need to, if you want, that you need to add something in this area. Also add something like in teal color and so on. No interaction here. This is just a display. Same works with saturation. You can see that the highly saturated colors are here abundant, but the colors at very low saturation aren't really. That's much for the palette menu section. Let's go on to the map section, and right away with the most complex feature of the entire application, auto calculate color map. So what it actually does, before I actually show it, I should tell what it does. Uh, the thing is, you will probably want to create a palette, typically modify a palette, and then you will probably also want to create a color map according to the palette you've changed, because some references will not work, and this auto calculates the feature just like this feature auto calculates the color map by trying to span each of these colors in the palette from 0 to 31, and finding the closest neighbor of the available colors in the whole palette that could match that matches the desired color. So it can be by default it will go from it will start with full black and try to reach and end with the desired color in the palette. Yeah, let me start it. It's similar to how automatic calculation worked in the previous editor. It takes a little bit of time, and you see it ends up with this. Now it's not as smooth and as perfect, but these are actually still the closest matches to the desired colors that you can find. Uh, there are some there are some features or some configuration parameters you can change to get some kind of an effect. So most of you, I guess, are familiar with the Chromas mines, where the colors, as they become darker, don't really fade to black, but rather to red. In the full distance, there is a dark red, and this feature allows, for example, I'll do the very same thing, but actually I'll use blue this time. I'll select blue, and when I go for this feature, I'll say instead of going from black, let's start with the selected color, which is a blue one. So it will start from the selected blue one towards create towards the actual palette and find the closest neighbors. Let it run and see. Okay, let me just hide. Yeah, you see here it's more of a bluish palette. These colors progress towards blue. It will work. It will work similarly if you, for example, take the red color as an example. Yeah, you see, it progresses towards red. So using this color map and this palette in the game, especially if you use the Chromas mines setting, it will have this red shade. You can of course use any other shade you like, brown or whatever. You just select the color that you want to fade towards, and start the auto calculation with this feature turned on. The other thing that this feature can be used for is actually limiting the palette. Let me show you an example. I'll select this blue one here and create auto calculate the map by using this selected blue color as a limiter. What it means in effect is that these colors that are auto-calculated should never exceed the RGB values of the selected colors. It can never become brighter in any channel than the selected colors. In this case, this color only has blue channels, so everything will have to be limited by that blue one. Let me show what effect it makes. The underwater effect. You see, now, running game with this feature, with this color map, would make everything look blue, except of course for the shiny dark colors. But you will get something like an aquatic look and feel of the game. This can be note that this can be used also for you can do the same thing only on specific ranges. So let me repeat the process, but this time instead of the full range from 0 to 31, let me apply it from 0 to 10, for example. And yes, blue selected, everything else is fine. You see what happens here now. If you have rooms which are for example, areas in the game which are at 31, from between 11 and 31, they will seem like as usual. They will not change, or they will be as we typically know them. But at light levels 10 and less, the entire palette will turn into this aquatic theme. So this can be useful. Something similar was done with the level 0 in being red in couple of levels. I think Assassination on Narshada is an example. Then the certainly Condition Red, and I think Beyond Glory 2 all use this trick at various parts of the game. So you can use the same thing here. There's a couple of other things to just mention quickly. While finding the best match for the calculated colors, by default it compares all the red and green and the blue channel and finds the closest match. But it can also compare in terms of hue, saturations, and brightness, and also give more priority to hue, or to give less priority to saturation when finding the best candidate, the best matching colors. This way, you can get sometimes more realistic colors in the dark, or you can get color maps that maybe retain the colors even if they don't work perfectly at all light levels. Depends on what you need. This makes the app actually look from backwards to find the best color, which normally you will not need, but maybe you will get slightly different results. And that is more or less about this feature. Probably it's difficult it would be impossible to show all possible examples how to use it, but play around with it, and you'll probably find a configuration that's suitable for what you need. One feature which is closely related to this auto calculation is here, the second one: solve unevennesses. So here in this original palette, this is the secret-based palette. You probably see here that this blue transitions to these grays rather abruptly, and it's to be kind of expected because in the palette we don't have any colors which would really bridge this border here nicely. So what this feature does is try to solve that such kind of such unevennesses. So it asks you what colors to sacrifice in the palette in order to patch this area. And let me show an example. So we want to bridge the area from 192 to 207. I said it's this blue area, and there is a range of colors we're ready to sacrifice in order to make this transition nicer. So let's sacrifice, for example, these colors here from 160 to 175. So I'll type 160 to 175 and let it calculate when I observe this area here once the thing starts. You see, at the expense of some other colors being changed, it auto-calculates the rest of the colors in order to make this area here as smooth as possible. So now you see it's much smoother. It's closer to what you would expect these colors to look as they become darker. But of course, you've got to sacrifice some of the colors. You've still got only 256 colors, and maybe you will, in some special situations, you'll maybe want to sacrifice a couple of them in order to have some color which is especially important for your level or for your environment to be as to transit as nicely towards black or towards any other color which you need as nicely as possible. So that's the use case for this feature. The next one is preview bitmap, and it's basically it just shows how a bitmap will look with the current color map at various light levels. So I just loaded one which is one of the default graphics, default textures, and you see by changing this slider's value, we can see how these, according to the currently loaded color map, how this bitmap will look at various light levels. The next one is replace map with, which is similar to what we had earlier. So you can choose a file and choose which mapping, which file which colors in the loaded color map will replace the current one. So it's kind of similar to like replace palette from another file. Can be useful if you've got a couple of projects you're working on and you want to combine them finally into one color map without having to actually manually go through all of that. Mass replace colors is a feature where you can, for example, find a color which appears in a couple of areas. Yeah, for example, here the color 236 appears in several and this one as well appears in several places in the color map. So this is color 228, and if you want to replace all of these occurrences with some other colors, you can do simply this, something like replace, and you see all occurrences of 228 are replaced by a color 8. As I wrote, 228 maps to 8, and all of these, wherever it used to occur in the color map, it's replaced by an index of another color. So you can instead of manually editing each and every of these, you can edit the entire shade, so to speak. Export to image just exports the color map as a blank image, nothing, not as a blank, but as a standard image. If you want to edit it in somewhere or compare it against anything, quite straightforward. Load from images, again, loading such an image. I've got here somewhere an image of a Pink Panther driving a Formula One car, and I'll load that one. Just as an example, load from image, and here we go. And see what happens. It will load the color map here. Of course, it will have to do some. It will have to pixelize a little bit, but you get the idea. If you got something edited and created in some other app, which corresponds to exactly to what you want in your color map, then you can load it like this and use it. And finally, toggle the selected color. This is a feature which lets you turn off and on whether you want to see these, whether you want to see where the currently selected color is used in the color map. So by default it's on, but you can toggle it that way. Onward to presets. Here we've got a list of presets for all the original levels, where you can easily, so you can just click on one and load it. Let me load, for example, Chromas mines, and here we've got the Chromas. Then let's load the Narshada has a different one. The Tele also has a slightly different. So if you want to start with something you're already familiar with from some level, just click there. Note that many of these are actually identical. Secret base is identical to the Arc Hammer, which is identical to the fuel station, which is identical to the Executor, and so on. But for simplicity, I've kept them all here. Although, yeah, most of them actually lead to the very same palette and the color map. And onward, tutorial shows this video about this, pretty self-explanatory. Here are some just thoughts and some typical questions you may have, and why things that don't work. Typically, it will go down to why some colors don't look exactly the same. It's because Dark Forces internally rounds the colors just to 6 bits, not instead of 8. So actually, we don't have values, RGB values from 1 to 255. We have something like more like instead of 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, we have values like 0, 4, 8, 12, 16, 24. So even though this editor supports 255 levels, in reality, the real game just the Dark Forces engine just closes it down to that. And keyboard shortcuts finally.